Alright, so Nintendo just came out with a new Pro Controller, and in this video, I'm gonna go over all the new features, compare it to the old one, and let you know if it's worth it or not. First thing we're gonna do is take it out of the box and see what's inside. So first off, it comes with a USB to USB-C cable so that you can charge a controller. The Nintendo Switch 2 dock has two USB ports on it, not a USB-C. Therefore, you have the traditional USB port on one side and the USB-C port on the other for the Pro Controller itself, with the little Nintendo branding on it, which is always nice. Next up is the controller itself. Comes wrapped up like always. Let's pull this out real quick and see what this looks like. And it looks basically identical to the last one, which I'll show you a comparison here in a little bit, but now has a full matte black look to it. It's no longer translucent. The plus and minus buttons are now raised where they were flat on the last one. It has a GR and a GL button, which are like the Pro Controller paddles for button mapping. The top is different color, and it now has a headphone jack here at the bottom, which was not the case on the last one. So there are a lot of upgrades on this controller. A little Nintendo branding here, and overall, I like it. The joysticks look better, I think. It has that little pop right there with the white at the bottom. Look at the details. Now with the plus and minus buttons, with it being flat on the last controller, sometimes I actually hit the capture button instead of hitting the plus or minus, which was annoying, so I'm glad they fixed that. Oh, these joysticks are smooth. Yo, these are super smooth. They got a new chat button down here, so if you want to chat. So there are quite a few changes on this new controller, so it is definitely an upgrade, that's for sure. So now to compare it to the other controller, here's what the other one looks like. Like I said, they're identical basically, except for the new chat button at the bottom. The grips are different. The old one has more of a rubbery grip with little holes for the sweat. This one doesn't, but it still feels very good in your hands. The top is the same basically. The buttons might be a little bit bigger and it's white at the top. As I mentioned before, there's no headphone jack on the old one where there is on the new one. And also, if you take a look here at the bottom, the indicator light when you connect your controller to the actual console itself is located on the bottom of this controller, where it's located on the top of the new one, which makes more sense in my opinion. So that's a nice little change right there too. The bottoms are basically the same. Like I said, no headphone jack. This one has a headphone jack, so, and the extra paddles for button mapping. So those are nice. Next up, I'm gonna do a sound test on what the joysticks sound like so you can tell how much smoother the new one is compared to the old one. First up, the original. It's definitely more clicky, and here's the new one. That's a pretty huge difference. And now one more test. Even the swirl has a little bit more noise. Now listen to this. That's some pretty good engineering right there. So that's definitely a welcome upgrade there. Maybe not something that most people probably complain about or look for, but it's definitely a noticeable upgrade. Another thing I like to point out is that the Pro Controller for the Switch 1, it will work on the Switch 2, but it will not wake up the console. You're gonna have to actually manually get up and turn the power on the console before it connects to it, which may or may not be a deal breaker for some, but it's definitely a quality of life thing that I wanted to point out. So like I said, your Pro Controller from your first Switch will work, but you're gonna have to turn it on first, then power it on, and then it will connect, and then you can resume playing. So if you're on the original Pro Controller, it is not useless, it is just less useful, I guess you can say. So now I'll show you what the new Pro Controller does. And now the new controller, you hit the power button or the home button and it turns on instantly. So that's just a quality of life feature that you expect for a new controller to do anyways, but it's just that quality of life feature is lacking from the old generation of the Pro Controller. So like I said, it may not be a deal breaker to a lot of people, but I just want to point that out. If you do have your old Pro Controller, that's just a hurdle that you're gonna have to deal with. And also with the new controller, you can add the button mapping option to your quick menu. So you don't have to always dig through the system settings to find it. But you can actually reassign your entire controller just in general, which is crazy. Unlike the PlayStation DualSense Edge where you have 4 different profiles for 4 different games, this one, whichever game that once you're in a game and you remap the buttons, it will save it for that game. So you don't have to remap it every time, and you don't have to have certain profiles for certain games. It just knows for this game, you like your controls like this, which is pretty cool. So it's almost like having unlimited profiles, which I'm really liking that. And I wish PlayStation would have done something like that. But then again, I only played certain games for my PlayStation DualSense Edge anyway, so more than 4 profiles wasn't really necessary for me. But it's nice to have, and it's nice to know that Nintendo thought about that. So you probably want to know, is the Switch 2 Pro controller worth it? Well, for me, I didn't think it was at first. But then I put my hands on it and actually used it, and I noticed the differences enough to justify it for myself. And I can honestly say, for me, it is. Look, it's a Pro controller. So to me, it kind of defeats the purpose if I have to get up every time to turn the console on, just to play. But even without that minor detail, I still would say yeah. It feels much nicer. The joysticks are a lot quieter, a lot smoother. The buttons are bigger. They're more raised. It has remappable paddles on the back. It has a headphone jack and a chat feature that wasn't there at first. It's just the little quality of life features that really make a difference on whether something's worth it or not. And for me, and how I like to play, it was worth it. But it all depends on the person that you are, the games that you play, and the quality of life things that you are willing to put up with or not put up with. If it's not a big deal for you to get up and have to turn the console on every time and sit back down, and you don't have a use for any extra buttons or paddles on the back to remap, then you're just fine with the old one. It's not that big of a deal. But if you're somebody who doesn't want to have to turn your console on when you have a wireless controller in your hand, and you do have a use for the extra buttons, if you're playing something competitive, which what most Pro controllers are used for, is a more competitive gaming, then it might be worth it for you. Now, the old Pro controller, I believe, was like $70. This one was supposed to be $80, but due to the political things going on and the tariffs and all that stuff, it was actually raised from $80 to $85. So another $15, which is not cheap by any measure. Much cheaper than the PlayStation DualSense Edge, which retails at $200. So you're catching it at $85. It is much cheaper than that, but at the same time, it's $15 more expensive than the original Pro controller. So that is another thing to consider too. It all depends on you, your use for it, and the money that you're willing to spend. Anyways, if you enjoyed today's video, please leave a like, comment, share with a friend. And if you made it this far in the video, drop a mushroom emoji in the comments so I know that you made it to the end. Also, consider subscribing if you want more Nintendo Switch content, or maybe even PlayStation content, because I do both. And I'll catch you in the next one.